It's time for Baby and Toddler Instructions with host Blythe Lipman. Blythe is a nationally renowned infant and toddler expert who has over 30 years' experience helping moms and dads regain their sanity, teaching them how to survive, and giving them the confidence they need to be the best parents ever. From sleeping, to crying, to potty training, to choosing a preschool, and so much more. If you're a parent, Baby and Toddler Instructions is the show you've been looking for. Now here's your host, Blythe Lipman.
Well, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you might be. Today's show has been pre-recorded, but that doesn't mean you can't get in touch with me. If you have a question, comment, or anything, you can always go to my website, mybestparentingadvice.com, and it will say contact, and I will get an email from you. Or you can always call my office at 480-510-1453 and talk to me, or you can schedule an appointment. I help with all non-medical things. Toddlers biting, tantrums, can't get your baby to stop crying or go to sleep. Again, you can call my office, 480-510-1453. So today, my guest is going to be Dr. Laura Markham. She's the author of a terrific book called Peaceful Parent, Happy Kids, and she has a site called Aha Parenting, and it's just great. So she'll be with us in just a bit. But first, I wanted to tell you, because this is a pre-recorded show, I can't tell you, what the recall update is for today. However, I do make sure I go in a few times each week and update the recall list on my website, mybestparentingadvice.com, because it's so important to keep our children safe. And, many times you will be lucky enough to get those gently used cribs or bouncy seats or, just baby equipment or toys. And you want to always make sure that they're not on the recall list. Because a lot of times I'll have parents say, well, there was just a bolt that was on there, or there was something hanging and I cut it off. Do not try to fix anything yourself. If something's on the recall list, it's there for a reason, and we want to keep everyone safe at all costs. So I put the phone numbers, I put the websites, and most times they'll either send you a replacement or they'll send you a part to fix something. But again, check the recalls on mybestparentingadvice.com. Had a couple things I wanted to share this morning before I talk to my guest. Yesterday I was watching the news, and this was so interesting. I was watching the doctors, it wasn't the news, and they were talking about this woman that had an eye infection. And one of her friends was breastfeeding her baby, and she heard that if you put breast milk in your eye, don't go ooh, that if you have an eye infection, it clears it up. So I got to thinking, and I started looking online, and I found this really interesting article about a couple studies. It says one of the many healing properties attributed to breast milk is the ability to cure eye infections such as pink eye, conjunctivitis, or sticky eye. For newborns, however, it says these eye infections can sometimes get serious if they're not properly treated. Obviously that's very important. There was a study in New Delhi that examined the effect that routinely applied the colostrum to babies' eyes on the likelihood of them developing an eye infection. And the first part of the study said the ones that received the colostrum, it said the moms put the colostrum in 3 times a day. It actually didn't say how many babies they did this. Oh, here it is. 3 out of 51 babies in the group that got the colostrum developed an infection, compared to 26 out of 72 that didn't. Okay, so this whole study goes on to say, it can work, it can't work. And the bottom line is, me, I always love sharing these studies that really, they don't mean a lot until you talk to your pediatrician. Because there's tons of studies. The bottom line of this study said, having said all this, with all the percentages, it said that there's, of course, no harm in trying breast milk to treat the eye infections. And if you're currently nursing, it's simple and free. And whilst it may not get rid of the symptoms, it certainly won't make them any worse. So anyway, after listening to this thing on the doctors, with this woman said her eye infection did go away. She used her friend's breast milk, which, Okay, whatever works. Everybody's different. Anyway, if you're going to try this method, I would still check with the pediatrician. Honestly, that's a new one on me. Also, what else do we have? Oh, this was pretty interesting. You know what? I just wrote an article which is in the Denver Jewish News and the Jewish Journal of LA, and it's about being a great grandma and how to not meddle and any of that. But this was pretty interesting. I saw it in Baby Center. It says that my in-laws are staying with us for 6 months while visiting from India. The mom's American, so, they have a little confusion with the cultural differences. And mom's trying to get back into the transition of being a working mom. And she has an adorable little baby daughter that had very beautiful, dark, long eyelashes. Well, mom came home from work to find that the mother-in-law had cut them off. Oh, my goodness. And the reason she cut them off was it wasn't anything cultural. Her eyelashes were too long, and the mother-in-law thought they might fall off and get in her eyes and hurt her. And anyway, what this mom goes to say is that she was going to a baby shower for her best friend, and they never met the baby, and now they have to meet her with no eyelashes. And she's just venting. I thought this was pretty funny. She said she's just venting. You know what? The mother-in-law was just doing what she thought was the best for the baby, and she didn't cry, and she didn't yell, and she didn't do any of that stuff. Maybe inside she did, but I wanted to share that with you because if you're having a new baby, you know what? You are going to get all kinds of advice, or even if you have a toddler, or it doesn't matter how old your children are, our family members and other people love giving advice, and it's all well-meaning, honestly. It comes from the heart. They always want what's best for the kids. And, if it's a grandma, mother-in-law, whatever, they remember when the kids were little. And, yes, things have changed a lot. But I do have to say, not everything has changed. Some things have gotten better, but some of the tried and true things from years ago, like checking the bath water with your wrist or elbow, still works. You don't have to get some contraption to tell you if the water is the right temperature. So some of those things do still work. So just say thank you and know it's coming from the heart when somebody gives you some advice. And then if it doesn't work for your family, that's okay. Do what works. So one more thing I wanted to share before I welcome my guest, if we have time before the commercial break. This week I would like to share some tips from my book, Help My Toddler Came Without Instructions, from a chapter called Toddlers Gone Wild, because we're going to talk to Dr. Laura Markham about peaceful parenting. And if you have a toddler, sometimes things get out of hand because being a toddler is all about me, and that's all normal. So here are a couple tips from my chapter called Toddlers Gone Wild, Negative Behavior and Discipline. One of the most important things when you have a toddler is routine. I can't say it enough. Having a consistent daily routine and schedule will make things so much easier because everybody's prepared. And I think sometimes when your toddler does have a tantrum or they just get upset, it's because you're doing something different and they get so used to the routine. So also, that isn't the whole story with tantrums. In my chapter, I talk about why children have tantrums, and I will just share this. One of the reasons that the little ones do have tantrums is that they need something. If they're not just saying, yeah, I think I'm gonna make mommy angry, they need something. They might be tired, they might need a snack, maybe they're cutting a molar. There's all kinds of reasons why toddlers lose it. Just make sure, another one of my tips is don't lose it yourself. You know what? If your toddler starts to have a tantrum, bend down to their level and try whispering in their ear. And sometimes they'll just stop because if you go, hi, you have to listen to mommy, it'll make them stop in their tracks. And you can deal with it from there. Also, another thing I wanted to share from my chapter was, decide ahead of time what you're going to fight over. Pick your battles. Is it worth it to fight over a nap time, a bedtime? Nap times and bedtimes are not negotiable, but is it worth it to fight over things like a dinner they don't want to eat, or maybe they don't want a snack, or they don't want the snack that you gave to them? Pick your battles. You know what? Make your life easier. Know ahead of time, and pick the things that are not negotiable, like bedtime, like nap time. Also, leave a little wiggle room for your toddler. like I said, they're learning, they're growing, they make mistakes, and sometimes it's upsetting because they get out of hand, but that's just part of being a toddler. Anyway, so those are a few tips from Help My Toddler Came Without Instructions, and you can purchase my book on my website, mybestparentingadvice.com, amazon.com, barnesandnoble.com, and you can also listen to my books because they're on Audible. And that's kind of great because if you have an issue, you can go to Audible, type in tantrums, and somebody will give you at least 20 tips to use to help. Probably by that time, the tantrum's over. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit about my guest today before we break for commercial. Her name is Dr. Laura Markham. She is the author of Peaceful Parenting, Happy Kids, and the founder of AhaParenting.com, which is a great site. She earned her PhD in clinical psychology at Columbia University. Her clinical practice is devoted to coaching parents from New York to Australia, and she's been featured and quoted in the Wall Street Journal, Parents, the LA Times, the Boston Globe, and hundreds of other print and online publications. She lives in Brooklyn with her family, and I have to say, Dr. Laura knows her stuff because I was looking at her book again for probably the 16th time. This book is terrific, and I can't say enough about it. It's How to Stop the Fighting and Raise Friends for Life, and we're going to talk all about that with toddlers and siblings, and I have so much to talk to her about. So before the break, let's say good morning. How are you, Dr. Markham?
Good morning, Blythe. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, I'm so excited you could be on the show, and I have to tell you, I don't usually turn down pages, but I ran out of bookmarks and pieces of tissues here, and I was so excited about the many things that you say in your book and the things that the parents say. So we have lots of pages turned down here. And
I love
when we
that.
come back from the break,
I often see that when people bring the book to me to sign at an event when they've had the book for a month or two. I love it when they're well loved like that, with the underlines and the turn downs.
I know, it really warms your heart because it knows you're helping. And you know what? We're both in the business to help parents because it's not easy being a parent.
It's the hardest
So when
thing.
we come back from the commercial, we are going to talk to you about how you started this. And I have so many questions about timeouts, apologies, how to create a good relationship between the baby and the toddler. Anyway, we're going to break for commercial. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back with more Help My Baby Came Without Instructions. It's Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet. We'll be right back right after these. Time and change are accelerating, making it increasingly difficult to gracefully go with the flow. Women Change the World presents conversations with featured guests about changes in their lives and how that change has created new and positive opportunities. Women Change the World with your host, Dr. Beth Golden, Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central here on TogiNet.com. We all know that change can knock you off course, and Dr. Beth's show and practices focus on revealing everything that's right with you. This information will help you make choices that align your true nature and set you along your path of least resistance. As Dr. Beth says, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. For more on Dr. Beth and her show, go to drbethgolden.com. That's drbethgolden.com. Women Change the World with your host, Dr. Beth Golden, Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central, here on TogiNet.com. This is the TogiNet Radio Network, radio with a cutting edge. If you could live your life truly standing in a place of peace, joy, and abundance, wouldn't that make your heart soar? Now you can, with Lessons in Joyful Living, with your host, Kimberly Rinaldi, Mondays at noon Central. Kimberly Rinaldi, having created a highly successful coaching practice, now teaches Lessons in Joyful Living. She believes in empowering others and that through it, you have the ability to break through any and all barriers, thus allowing you to reach your greatest potential and joyfully step into your life's purpose.
What used to take weeks, months, or even years, she can now teach you in a matter of hours with her programs. For more on Kim and her show, go to her website, KimberlyRinaldi.com. That's RINALDI.com. Then join us for Lessons in Joyful Living with your host, Kimberly Rinaldi. Welcome back to Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet. The hour for all moms with little ones to come for great advice, encouragement, and great ideas for all new parents. Now, back to the show with Blythe Lipman.
Well, welcome back to Baby and Toddler Instructions. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today is a pre-recorded show, but you can always contact me via my website, mybestparentingadvice.com. And I am here today with my wonderful guest, Dr. Laura Markham. She wrote a terrific book called Peaceful Parent, Happy Siblings, How to Stop the Fighting and Raise Friends for Life. And also, you have to look at her website. It's called ahaparenting.com. I just love it. And, you know, as a new parent, which I'm not, even I was looking, going, gosh, I wish I knew that. You know, we always have questions, and I have to say, even though I started babysitting when I was 11 years old, when I had my daughter, I kind of fell apart. She had her days and nights mixed up, and then I had her brother, and I thought, wait a minute, why don't I know how to do this? I can do it for everybody else. Anyway, so we can always learn. So, Dr. Markham, how did you always want to do this? Did you always want to, be a clinician? How did all this happen?
You know, I had a PhD in psychology, and I had not gotten my dissertation done yet, and I had my second child. Now, the first child, I was already very interested in child stuff, and I was already doing an internship in children. And then when I had my second child, and my son completely panicked about the fact that there was this baby in the house and why we couldn't send her back. And at that point, I started researching siblings. And that's how I ended up writing my book, Peaceful Parent, Happy Siblings. But my first book is Peaceful Parent, Happy Kids, How to Stop Yelling and Start Connecting. And that's my basic parenting approach. And that's really about regulating our own emotions and connecting with your child and how to coach kids so they become emotionally intelligent.
You know, it's just great because as parents, yes, we're tired. Yes, you know what? We lose it. We can't help it. It's a very fast world, and most parents work. And at the end of the day, you know what? You're tired, but your child needs you, and they need you to set the boundaries and tell them what to do and teach them. So for a new mom, let me ask you, for a new mom, do you have a tip that you would share how to be a peaceful parent? They come home from the hospital. The adrenaline's still pumping, but they're exhausted, and then they're crying, and then,
Yeah, exactly.
Where do we start?
I would say the first thing is you can only give your baby what you've got inside. So you do have to prioritize. And I see new moms who try to be some picture-perfect idea. You know, they're worried about what their hair looks like when people come visit. Like, excuse me, that's not what matters. What matters is that you get some sleep. You know, what matters is that you hold your baby when they're crying and they need you, and you're wanting to bond with them. I'm thinking of one new mom who the grandparents came and stayed, and that was great because they were helpful. But really, what they were helpful doing was holding the baby. So she ended up having to put her foot down to her in-laws and say, I love you dearly, and I love that you love your new grandson. I need to hold my son sometimes. I need to bond with him. So I think when we're new parents, we desperately need help. And don't be afraid to ask for help. But the help, and this is the advice for people who are visiting a new mom, the help should be help her with the dishes, help her with the laundry, help her bring some food into the house. But don't just take the baby away and hold the baby, right? And if she wants you to, absolutely. But that, we don't want to leave the new mom feeling like, everybody else is holding the baby and here she is sort of, not able to have the time to attach to the baby.
No, and you're bringing up a really good point because I was talking to my daughter about this the other day. There's some hospitals where the first hour after the delivery, they don't want anybody in the room. The hospitals will not let people in the room
Yes.
because they want the parents to bond with the new baby. And they don't want, all the excited grandmas grabbing the baby and holding it and passing. And, this baby's like minutes old.
Right. And of course, we want to hold the baby if we're the grandma.
Oh, yeah.
And, but in fact, what the baby needs is to connect first with mom and dad.
Absolutely. And also it's funny because I was thinking about the picture of Princess Kate with her makeup and her hair and her pretty dress. And it's like, who looks like that? You're tired. Where are the sweats?
Exactly. Well, she has staff, first of all, to hold the baby while she primped. And she has staff to primp her and to, a makeup artist. We don't usually have that, makeup artists who live with us or are on call. But, even then, I think what baby Charlotte needed, the princess needed, was to be in mommy's arms or daddy's arms, right? She didn't need her mom to, it's so sad that Kate had to primp for the cameras and be judged, right? As opposed to just being able to, have that bonding time, that sort of nesting time with her new baby, right? That's what she really needed. And also time with her son to reassure him, mommy's still here for you, honey.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I so agree because I looked at her and I did, honestly, I thought, why don't you come out with sweats and no makeup and be like everybody else? Even though it's true, they have staff and they, there's a reputation there and then there would have been stories. But anyway, you're absolutely right. And, I really wondered what happens with the big brother now.
Well, the big brother in this case is going to have an easier time of it than some big brothers because of the staff. Right? One of the reasons for sibling rivalry is that children actually lose something that's really important to them, and they think they need it for survival, and that's the parental time and attention. You've only got two hands, and the baby's crying, and big brother has to wait. So it's a good thing that there will be more people being responsive to the little prince's needs. But, of course, there's still going to be a certain amount of sibling rivalry. There always is, number one. And number two, they're close in age. And the closer kids are in age, the research shows, the more likely there is to be jealousy. They will also play more, so that's the good news. They'll play more. They will therefore have more opportunities for fun in their relationship, and that will probably mean that they're closer, that they actually grow up to be closer, and that's wonderful. And so it's not a bad thing to have children close together. It's just that the older child is really still a baby himself. And so he really can't, when you say you have to wait, mommy has to go with the baby, well, he can't wait. He doesn't yet have enough of a frontal cortex to gracefully wait, actually. And it's harder for him, and it can make him very sort of not only needy, but desperate and jealous. It can do that. So I think it is hard. I purposely spaced my kids apart, which I had the luxury of doing. Not everybody does. We don't always get to decide when our blessings show up in our life, right? But in my case, I knew that I would be a better mom if I had a little rest in between and didn't space them too much apart because I was worried about being able to meet both their needs. It puts much more pressure on the parent.
How much space did you put between? I'm just curious if you want to share.
Yeah, I personally chose to do 4 years. That's a long gap for most people. Most people do 2 years, at least in the United States. Some people do a year. Some people do 3 years. I knew that would because I'd read the research, and I knew that way my son would be partly out of the house. He'd be at preschool half the day. He'd have a life sort of beyond the family, and he wouldn't as much depend on me. It would be easier for him to be generous with his sister when she was born with the next child because he wouldn't need me quite so much, and he would be off at school part of the day so I could dote on the baby and maybe sleep in a little bit, whatever, get a little nap. So I knew that it would make me a more patient mom. I will say the downside of the 4 years is that they played together much less than kids I see, their cousins who are only 2 years apart played together much more, for instance. But on the other hand, it did mean that we didn't have as much, after the initial panic about who's this baby in the house taking up mom's attention, he settled into the routine pretty quickly and just became a protective, happy older brother. So it did actually make my life easier and probably his life easier. But as I say, the downside is they didn't play together as much because, a 4-year gap, it's going to be harder for them to share interests. So, I think there's no right way. There's just that every way puts different pressures on the parent. And when they're close together, the pressure on the parent is, can you really stay patient as you try to meet the needs of two babies? That's really the question.
So let me ask you something. When you're bringing the new baby in and your other child is young, do you think it helps if you get them to help you and you prepare them when you're doing the nursery for the baby, if they're going to have their own nursery? Does it help to have your child involved? Like I've always said, pick out some baby toys. I've told my parents, go through the toys that your child's too old for now, and let's put them aside for the baby.
Absolutely. I think it's a great idea. In the instance that you've just described, of course, your child may rebel. He may say, I'm not giving that away, even though he's not looked at it in a year, right? So, you don't want to pressure your child. But absolutely, I actually think picking out the lovey. You want to go buy a new lovey for the baby that the older child picks out. And the reason for that is that the lovey becomes very important as a comfort object for the new child, for the baby. And so this way, you're constantly giving the older child credit. So when you present the baby, the older child presents the baby with the lovey, you can also have picked out something yourself that the older child wants. And you can have it wrapped and say, the baby has a present for you too. When you bring the baby home and you have the little gift exchange. So the baby gets the lovey from Big Sister, let's say, and Big Sister gets a little wrapped present from the baby. And, parents sometimes say, well, she'll know the baby didn't pick this out. I've never had a child question it. And if they do question it, you would just say, I knew this is what the baby would get you because she would want to get you exactly what you wanted or something like that. So I helped her, But children they're not concrete thinkers when they're under the age of 5. They're just happy to get a present. And it makes them feel more warmly toward the baby. But meanwhile, they've given the baby the lovey. So you're going to have a lot less of this, he took my blankie, where the 2-year-old is complaining that the 4-year-old took his blankie. Because actually the 4-year-old feels that blankie is part of their largesse that they've, blessed the little one with. And so they get some credit for that. And you constantly talk about how they did that and gave the baby this coveted object.
And it's so great. You know what? It's all about positive reinforcement. And before we break for a commercial, I do want to add one thing to it. When you choose a lovey for your baby or for the older sibling, buy 2. Because they get lost and sometimes they don't make the same brand and it's just different and forget it. Anyway, we will be right back after our break.
We'll be right back with more help. For help, my baby came without instructions. It's Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet. We'll be right back right after these.
Baby love, my baby love, I need you, oh, I need you.
Information about book publishing is power. The power to change your authoring life. And the power to change the lives of your readers. So join us for Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. You'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now. As the book shepherd, Dr. Judith Briles is in. And each week, she will include publishing professionals that will reveal tips and secrets to the author's journey. If there is a book in you want to listen, learn, and yes, call in with your questions each week. For more on Judith and what she can do for you, check out her website, thebookshepherd.com. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by Author You and The Book Shepherd with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.
This is the TogiNet Radio Network. Radio with a cutting edge.
Are you happy with your life? Satisfied with the direction you're taking? More importantly, are you content with the results you're seeing? Then Success Profiles Radio is the program for you. Join host Brian K. Wright as he talks to experts in many areas relating to life success, including expertise in leadership, business, relationships, careers, networking, health, overcoming adversity, and much more. Each week, we'll explore different aspects of success and how to apply them to your life. For more on Brian and the show, check out his website, briankwright.com. Each week is a dose of inspiration. So many people live their lives wanting more than they currently have. Success Profiles Radio is a show that will clearly demonstrate the principle, if I can do it, you can do it. So don't miss this opportunity to take control of your life and your results. Success Profiles Radio with Brian K. Wright, Mondays at 5 p.m. Central. Welcome back to Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet, the hour for all moms with little ones to come for great advice, encouragement, and great ideas for all new parents. Now, back to the show with Blythe Lipman.
Well, welcome back to the show. I am here with my wonderful guest, Dr. Laura Markham. Her latest book is Peaceful Parent, Happy Kids, How to Stop the Fighting and Raise Friends for Life. And before the break, we were talking about if you have a toddler and you're bringing the baby home, that the toddler should pick out a special lovey for the baby. And, of course, you pick out a special gift from the baby to the toddler. And what I said before the break is make sure you buy two and hide one. Because I have heard more parents come to me and they have this lovey that the kids absolutely adored, and it got lost if they went on a trip or the washer ripped it. So always buy two. That's my important advice when we talk about loveys. So let me ask you, let's talk a little bit, Dr. Laura, about timeouts. What do you think about timeouts? Because, it depends on the family. Some families like to use them, some families don't. And I believe it depends on the age and how much the child's going to understand. What are your thoughts about timeouts?
Well, timeouts when we first started to recommend timeouts, it was because it was a big improvement over spanking. That parents didn't know what to do when the child misbehaved, and they spanked the child because that's what had been done to them, and that was sort of universal at that time. And it started to be a thing, timeouts, because it was an alternative that pediatricians could give you instead of, everybody could have a chance to calm down, your child could calm down, you could calm down, and so it's still recommended. However, the research on it shows us that actually it doesn't help kids behave better. It doesn't, yes, it stops them from misbehaving in the moment, but if you have a strong-willed child, they won't even go to timeout. They'll fight you on it, and you have to drag them kicking and screaming, and then you're creating a power struggle that sort of bleeds into every area of your life and with your child, and even if your child goes to timeout, let's imagine here's a kid who has just the older, since we're talking about siblings, the 4-year-old knocks down the 2-year-old's tower the 2-year-old is trying to build. They're sitting there happily building their block towers. You're trying to get dinner on the table. And all of a sudden, you hear a big crash, and the 2-year-old's in tears, and you go into you look in the other room, and there, the 2-year-old's in tears and is so upset because his tower's just been knocked down. And your 4-year-old looks guilty. And you say to your 4-year-old, how could you do that to your brother? You know better. You're the oldest. All right, time out for you. And you drag your 4-year-old off to the naughty step, and you say, you think about what you did. You can come out in 4 minutes. Since he's 4 years old, that's usually what people do is 4 minutes. And so he sits there for 4 minutes, and you go back to your 2-year-old, and you try to help your 2-year-old feel better, and you're livid. So meanwhile, your 4-year-old's sitting on the naughty step. Now, is your 4-year-old saying to himself, oh, next time I'll be a better big brother. I'll be nicer to the 2-year-old.
Yeah, right.
Never. He's sitting there thinking, Mom always takes his side. She likes him better, right? And in fact, that sibling rivalry touches on some old and universal sibling rivalry, which goes something like this. Since our genetics are from the Stone Age, if a tiger jumps out of the bushes, who's Mom going to save? Well, clearly, Mom is going to save the 2-year-old. She's made that very clear. She prefers him. She sent the elder one to timeout. And after all, the mom doesn't even understand, thinks the 4-year-old. The 2-year-old took the special block that had the special shape that he needed for the top of his tower, and the 2-year-old took it and wouldn't give it back and was just being stubborn. It was all the 2-year-old's fault anyway, right? So is your 4-year-old learning something from this? No. He's learning that, Mom likes the 2-year-old better. and you're actually making the sibling rivalry worse, and there's more chance that he'll hit his brother next time. So if instead you went into that same situation and you said, okay, I'm going to first calm myself down since I'm livid at my 4-year-old. That's the most important thing. Then I'm going to connect with both kids. I'm going to minister to the one who's crying. Oh, sweetie, what happened? You're so sad about your tower. You worked so hard on it. Oh, I'm so sorry. And you take he's in the curve of your arm and you're hugging him. And then you turn to your guilty-looking 4-year-old because you've just calmed yourself down enough to deal with him in a civil manner. And you put your arm out to him, too. And you say, come here, sweetheart. Tell me what happened here. I see 2 very upset boys. All of a sudden, you've transformed this. He's not coming from a place of defensiveness. He actually feels like maybe you would understand. And he says, Mom, he wouldn't give me the block I needed. I didn't mean to knock it down, but he wouldn't give me the right block, and I tried to take it from him, and then it fell, so he tells you his side of the story. You say, wow, so you were so upset, so you really wanted that block. You both wanted that block, right? You both wanted the block, and you're looking from one to the other, and they're nodding at you, and then you say to the 2-year-old, and so then he grabbed the block, and it pushed your tower, right, and it knocked your whole tower down, and you were so sad, and you cried. You're telling the story. That's helping build emotional intelligence for both children. And it's helping build empathy because they each hear the other's point of view. So you're already miles ahead of where you were with the timeout. And now, here's the clincher. You look at your 4-year-old and you say, wow, I really see why you were upset you wanted that block. No matter what, it's not okay to solve problems like with violence. I guess you wouldn't say violence to a 4-year-old, but that's not an okay way to solve problems. What could you do? He's very upset because his tower fell down. What could you do to make things better here with your brother? And the 4-year-old, since he's been understood, he doesn't have that chip on his shoulder as with the timeout. Since he's been understood, he's able to look at you and say, and his brother, and say, well, I guess I could help him build the tower again. If he wouldn't grab my blocks away. If he'll promise not to grab my blocks, he might say something like that. But suddenly you have a repair effort going on. The 4-year-old is actually trying to make things better with the 2-year-old. And before you know it, they're working together to build the tower. And so you've instead of increasing the sibling rivalry and the chance of more hitting, you've actually decreased it by listening, by not jumping in, deciding who's right and wrong, but listening to both kids, not so you can decide who's right, but so they feel heard. Both of them feel heard. And then expecting that they're going to work something out and make a repair with each other.
That's wonderful because to start at a young age, I don't care what age we are. I don't care if we're 85 years old. Everyone wants to be heard. And that's the key. When we feel like we're not heard, it's upsetting. As we get older, as the kids get older, everybody wants to be heard and understood. So it's great, and it makes it easier, too, for the parent if you start off that way and that's how you do things. What happens, though, I have 2 questions. First of all, I've been successful a number of times by using a toy timeout box. The toy goes in the timeout box, not the child, when you really can't settle it. And, you've tried your best and all these things, they just keep happening and there's fighting to take the toy and put it in the timeout box. It doesn't have to stay there for days, whatever works. What do you think of the timeout box for toys?
I think it's fine to do. And I would, instead of having a set time, like you said, it doesn't have to stay there for days, instead of making the children powerless after you take the toy away and put it in the timeout, I would give them the power. You can have the toy back as soon as you two have an agreement about how you will stop fighting over the toy. And, whose turn it is first, whose turn it is second, or how you're going to work together to share it. As soon as you have an agreement, it's your toy.
Perfect. You know what? It's so perfect to give the child the self-esteem and let them have some of the power. Because when you're talking about this, we're talking about toys. If it's something that's not safe, that's a whole other topic. Yes. But this is particularly about with the fighting, which is a perfect segue to the next thing I would like to ask you about. What about in preschool? You have kids in preschool and they fight, and many times you'll see the teacher immediately say, you need to apologize to Jackie. And the child doesn't want to apologize. They're pissed off. Something happened. They took the toy or whatever happens to be. What do you do in preschool? Do you think they need to apologize to each other?
This is such a tricky question because, of course, what the teacher wants is for there to be a repair. She wants the children to make up and move on. right? And she wants if there was somebody who actually did something hurtful, she wants that child to take responsibility and, to make it better with the other child. And she wants the other child to feel better. All of that we all agree on as adults. That's what we want for the children. But again, we now know so much more because there's a lot of research. So John Gottman, who's a researcher out of Seattle who researches couples, has done a new study that looks at couples apologizing to each other. And what did he find out? When somebody feels pressured to apologize, and they do, and it happens very quickly after the fight, and they haven't had time to calm down, it's not a sincere apology. They feel resentful, and the person to whom the apology is offered, the other half of the couple, doesn't feel like it repairs anything because they know it's basically the person doesn't mean it. Their partner doesn't mean it. So actually, some of us had an instinct about this. This doesn't seem like a great thing to do because if you listen to children will say that they don't want to apologize while they're still angry, right? That they don't mean it and they don't want to do it and you're just teaching them to lie. Kids will say things like that. My daughter used to say that all the time, like, I'm not going to lie and say that I'm sorry. I'll tell you later if I do feel sorry. And then she would actually come up to her brother or to me or whoever later and say, I am sorry I did that or I said that or whatever, right? But this was 4 hours later after she'd calmed down and she didn't feel like she was losing face. So it turns out that if we listen to kids, they were telling us what in fact is true, what John Gottman has now shown us with the research. So I am not a fan of forcing kids to apologize. I think it just makes them more resentful of each other. And that instead, what we do is we help them with the emotions that they're upset about. So in the block example, maybe our 4-year-old was too mad to help rebuild the tower right then. Maybe he needed some time to calm down first. Adrenaline is coursing through his system. He's got some long-held resentments. Maybe he actually needs a chance to calm down or even to cry about how much you always take his side. You love him more. And, maybe he needs a chance to cry and have us say, oh, sweetie, that must feel terrible to feel like that. I could never love anyone more than I love you. And once he moves beyond those feelings, then he will help build the tower or he will apologize. So the problem with the preschool example is that teacher does not have time to help that kid with his feelings. If that kid cries, she's not going to really have time to help him. So I do think that there are different rules when you're managing a class of 20 children than when you have 2 children at home or 3, right? I think, teachers are going to have to do whatever they need to do to manage their class. But, I think you can also talk with kids about it at home. When the kid says, she made me apologize, you can say, what do you think about that? I was mad. You were really mad? What, and you let the child tell you their story. And then you can ask questions like, but how do you think Johnny felt when you apologized to him? And usually kids will tell you Johnny felt he won, not that it made their relationship better. And so, it still helps the child if they were upset about the incident to come home and talk to you about it. And you can say to your child, we don't have that rule here at our house. That's a preschool rule.
I hate to interrupt you, but they're going to be upset with me because we have to take a commercial break, so we'll be right back.
All right.
We'll be right back with more Help My Baby Came Without Instructions. It's Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet. We'll be right back right after these. If you could live your life truly standing in a place of peace, joy, and abundance, wouldn't that make your heart soar? Now you can, with Lessons in Joyful Living, with your host, Kimberly Rinaldi, Mondays at noon Central. Kimberly Rinaldi, having created a highly successful coaching practice, now teaches Lessons in Joyful Living. She believes in empowering others and that through it, you have the ability to break through any and all barriers, thus allowing you to reach your greatest potential and joyfully step into your life's purpose. What used to take weeks, months, or even years, she can now teach you in a matter of hours with her programs. For more on Kim and her show, go to her website, KimberlyRinaldi.com. That's RINALDI.com. Then join us for Lessons in Joyful Living with your host, Kimberly Rinaldi.
Join the Executive Business Seminar with author and trainer, Dr. Risa Wolf, Ph.D. Are you looking for practical business tips and techniques for dealing with difficult situations or lowering speaking anxiety? Then this show is where you need to be if you are a business owner, corporate executive, or anyone ambitious about their career growth. Dr. Risa Wolf draws from her extensive mentoring background for business leaders and executives and interviews leaders who have practical solutions. Join Dr. Risa Wolf every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for your edition of the Executive Business Seminar, right here on ABRN, the All Business Radio Network.
Welcome back to Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet, the hour for all moms with little ones to come for great advice, encouragement, and great ideas for all new parents. Now, back to the show with Blythe Lipman.
Well, welcome back to the show. Today is pre-recorded, but if you have a question or comment for me or Dr. Laura Markham, the author of Peaceful Parent, Happy Siblings, How to Stop the Fighting and Raise Friends for Life, this is her most recent book, you can find either of us. You can go to ahaparenting.com for Dr. Markham, and you can go to my website, mybestparentingadvice.com. You can always contact me there, or you can always call my office. Anyway, we were talking about preschool, and we were talking about having to apologize before the break. Before we go any further, because we're up to the last part, and it goes so fast, you're going to have to come be my guest again. You're a great guest. Thanks for being on the show. Do you have a favorite parenting tip?
I would say the most important thing for parents to remember is to regulate your own emotions, because children's brains are very plastic. They actually are taking shape in the first 3 years, really the first 6 years, in response to the parent. So whatever, if we yell, they're going to become yellers themselves. And it will give them, they'll become drama queens because they'll become overreactive because everything's always an emergency, because we've acted like everything's an emergency. So if we can stop and take a deep breath and calm ourselves down before we intervene with our kids, it really changes everything, and you'll have a much more calm child who's a better problem solver.
So that's a great tip. When you come home from work and you're tired and they're crying and everybody's tired and you just are going to lose it, I always tell parents it's okay to have I call it a little breather and time out. You know what? Let your child read a book. It's not a punishment. Open the front door. Take a breath of fresh air if you just can't get it together, because sometimes we can't. And you know what? You don't have to feel bad that you're rattled as a parent. It's just part of being a parent.
Things will not be perfect. There will always be those times when everybody's crying at once. And I just tell parents, sit down on the floor and breathe. Just breathe. Just keep breathing to calm yourself down, because that gives you a choice. Am I going to get hijacked by my sense that this is an emergency? Or can I calm myself down and just say, you know what, people are allowed to cry. Feelings are okay. It's no emergency. And, you can just put out your arms and say, I know, come here, you on this side, you on this side. Everybody needs to cry sometimes. And parents say, what if I feel like crying? Go ahead and cry a little bit. That's okay. We all need to cry. And then you can, once everybody's gotten it out of their system, you can say, okay, what are we going to do to turn things around here? Let's everybody go and get a drink of water and a wet washcloth, and, let's figure out how to get some food in our tummies, because we're all cranky and hungry, and you're the grown-up. The point is that you need to act like the grown-up in the end when everything's falling apart.
I love that, because parents sometimes think they have to be this strong, not show the kids that you're upset, and not cry, or not say, you know what, that made me really angry. Whatever. It's okay. Be human. Do you think you can schedule meltdowns?
Well, scheduled meltdowns just means sometimes, like, the kid might be really cranky, and it's because they just need a chance to cry. And so if you notice your kid being really cranky, go ahead and just move in close and take him in your arms and say, you are having such a tough day today. Tell me about it. And before you know it, he'll be telling you, and he'll be like whiny in that whiny voice, and all of a sudden he'll be tearing up. And it's great. He gets it out of his system. And then, you know what? You'll have a much better day for the rest of the day.
You know what? That's a great tip. But parents worry sometimes, let me say this the right way, that if you ask them to, how do you not become your child's best friend, or be your child's best friend and also be the parent that does talk about, what's safe, what's not, setting up the boundaries.
You can't be afraid to set limits. We are the parent. It's our job. I mean, how will kids know otherwise? No, you can't throw your food. You can't hurt your brother. How will kids know these things unless we guide them? We have to set the limits. But it doesn't mean you have to be mean about it. The Dalai Lama says, be kind whenever possible. It is always possible. And so when you're setting limits with your child, set that limit. But you don't have to be mean about it. You can just say, no, we don't throw food. Right? That's it.
Right.
Are you done with your dinner? Do I need to put this away? We don't throw food. Right? That's it. That's the limit.
Short and sweet and direct.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? And it's fine because your children don't hear you any better if you yell. In fact, I think they hear you less if you raise your voice and start having your own meltdown.
That's true. Yes. When we yell, their frontal cortex turns off, which is the reasoning part of the brain and the learning part of the brain. Instead, they move into emergency, fight, flight, or freeze, right? Because they're anxious. When we yell, it's threatening to them. So we're not helping them learn what we're trying to teach them when we yell.
No, and we all feel better when we don't yell. It's okay to say no, but you're right. You can be kind about it. And I'm happy you used the example of throwing food because I've had parents come to me many times and say, I don't know what to do. My child throws food. And I said, because my kids are grown up, I'll say, well, you don't know this because, you're a new parent, but they're not hungry anymore. When they start playing, lunch is over.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't make a big deal out of it. Lunch is over. And don't worry if they didn't eat enough because then they worry. They'll eat at the next meal and don't fill them up with cookies during the snack time. Then they'll eat a good dinner.
Right, exactly.
But it's tough because it's all relative. When you've never been a parent before, you don't know. And that's why you've written your great books. I write my books, and, we're here to help. Talk to me a little bit about your newsletter and your website so parents know where to find you.
I'm online at ahaparenting.com. That's AHA, like those aha moments. AHAparenting.com. It's a very extensive website. It's about 1,000 pages. It's all free. It's a public service. And there are sections for each age child. So whether you've got a newborn baby or whether you have a teenager and everything in between. And I also offer a newsletter that you can sign up for to get once a week, which is just a compilation of articles from the website, along with a blog post from that week, my favorite blog post or the one that people love the most. And then you can also sign up for an additional 2 newsletters a week. So it's either once or it's 3 times. And if you get 3 times, you're getting my blog post, basically. And the blog posts are really designed to support you as a parent, to help you regulate yourself, to help you connect more with your child, to help you coach your child to be emotionally intelligent so they can regulate their own emotions, which, of course, is what lets them regulate their behavior.
It's a great site, and you know what? You have answers to everything, and you make it so easy for parents. So, if you're listening, go to ahaparenting.com. I love the name. So let's talk a little bit about competition. In this day and age, there's so much competition, and it starts so early with kids. They go to preschool, and, again, we can talk about preschool when teacher has 15 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds and they don't have time to get down and hug them all the time, and you have to do the next thing. How do we deal with the competition?
Well, of course, competition is a huge topic, and we could talk a lot about it, but I think the most important thing for parents to do is to get clarity about their own feelings about it. So, if one of your kids is coming home from school with an award from the school for, whatever, being a great student, and your other kid doesn't get that award, I think it's really critical that you have the clarity to say, you know what, it's great that Jennifer got this award for being a great student. But, Helena has other great things also about her, and things that the school maybe should pay more attention to but doesn't. Like, Helena, I noticed you were so kind to, this other little girl on the playground when she hurt herself, and I noticed that you always remember, when the dog, you always notice if the dog's water bowl is low and you make sure the dog has enough water to drink because the dog can't tell us and doesn't have hands to refill his own water bowl. And I just see how kind you are and how considerate you are of everyone. And if there was an award for that, I would be giving you that award so that you're your values are informing what you think is important. It's not just about the competition that the culture sets up.
No, you know what? It's so important to embrace your children's differences because we're all different, and not everybody likes the same thing, and we were not all good at everything. We can't be. But
Okay.
I do have to say it makes me crazy because the children are getting into sports earlier and earlier. And I wonder, at the end of the season, everybody gets a trophy. And I'm always shaking my head thinking, well, how do you teach them? You want to make them feel good about themselves, but it's, what? It's tough. And I think you've got the answer is to just bend down, talk to your children, embrace their differences, and let them know they're loved no matter what. Because we're coming to the end of the show, and I would love to have you come back on. We could talk for hours about this. Love your book. I love your site. And you know what? I know all my parent listeners or expectant parents and even grandparents will too. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, Blythe, thank you for having me. It was such fun to talk with you.
Oh, thanks. And enjoy your beautiful weather. I hope it's not too hot there in New York. I hope it gets a little cooler.
Yes, it's great.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Wow. What a nice guest. Dr. Laura is just great. And so is her book and her website. And I really, honestly, I'm sitting here with this book and the pictures and everything's turned down. And I think every parent should read this book because there's great tips. But the one thing that she said throughout the whole interview is, you know what? Get down and talk to your kids. Build up their self-esteem. Ask them how they feel. When they get into a fight, don't just yell at them because, as she said, yelling doesn't work. It changes. They really don't hear. It's the fight or flight response. Talk to them and say you understand they're frustrated and you understand things aren't working out the way they thought it would, and ask them how they feel. And ask them what they would do, even though you're saying, oh, I'm busy, I don't have time, and I have to get dinner on. And you know what? I love the fact that at the end of the day, when everybody's all grumpy, you have a group hug. And if you all want to cry, cry. Or if you all want to run around, whatever works in your family, everybody is different. So on that note, we will have Dr. Laura on again. She was great. If you get a chance, visit my website, mybestparentingadvice.com, and I'm on Facebook. I have 2 pages, Baby Instructions and My Best Parenting Advice. I'd love it. If you'd like my pages, I post all the time. I love putting my pictures on. It's so much fun, and I'm on Twitter and Pinterest and LinkedIn and Google and try to update daily. Also, again, I can help you with any of your non-medical issues, baby crying, sleeping, choosing the perfect preschool, or picking a nanny. You can call my office at 480-510-1453, and I'd like to leave you today with these wonderful words of wisdom. Children dance before they learn there is anything that isn't music, by William Stafford. And finally, every morning you have 2 choices. You can continue to sleep with dreams, or you can wake up and chase your dreams. I just love it. So thanks so much for tuning in today. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.